Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is my pleasure to share with you another edition of Wine, Women, and Words. In this evening's video, I am going to be discussing Sister Souljah's book, published first in 1999, The Coldest Winter Ever. And there is a new edition that has come out in 2021. So I will get that and see the difference between this book and the new edition. As I talk about it, I will be sipping my favorite wine. And this is plum wine from Takara Plum Premium. Oh, yes. I am so elated to share this book with you and to share my experience with this book. I remember, oh, that is so good. I remember picking up that book in probably 1999, 2001. As soon as it dropped, I'm sure I was aware of it. Why? I've always been a reader. I am a lifelong reader. So when a book comes out by an African-American author, and in particular an African-American female author, I am on the scene to see what it is about, because I love keeping up with the creative work of my fellow African-Americans and African-American women writers. First of all, when I came into contact with this book, so many people around me were saying how good it was. And oh my gosh, have you read The Coldest Winter Ever, Claudia? And I was thinking, no, but it's on my list, so I will see what it's about. And my friends and colleagues, other teachers were saying, oh my God, it is the best book. You have got to read it. You've got to read it, Claudia. Hands down, it is so good. So I was like, okay, I've got to get to this book faster. So when I read the first chapter and made my way to the second and third, my thoughts were, oh, I'm not going to waste my time reading this book. This book is about a little ghetto chick who thinks that she is all that. She got a light-skinned, curly-haired, Latino named father, Ricky Santiago. And I thought, okay, colorism. We've got this fine black man who looks something, and he is a drug dealer, thugging it out in the hood in Brooklyn, selling his own people, I would guess his own people, or maybe selling black people, not white people, drugs, making his climb to prosperity that way by destroying black communities and families and people. I was like, this little offspring of Ricky Santiago is just a character that I do not want to connect with. I couldn't see any parallels. I couldn't see any bridges to walk across to this character. I didn't admire her, didn't respect her, wondered why Sister Souljah would want to write about a ratchet little, I am better than all of you ghetto girls, who wasn't really a ghetto girl because her father was the kingpin in the ghetto, and so she was the queen of the ghetto, more or less. So everybody knew to step back, don't fight her. She is Santiago's daughter. I thought, of all the characters to know about, I want to know about her. And she's speaking in a language I'm not trying to wade through and read about a character speaking this language, and a character not only speaking that language, but a character who idealizes and glamorizes life in the ghetto the way she was living it. I could tell she was going to be a static character. So what did I do? Oh, well, I hoped that she might be a dynamic character who was able to change, but as I read more and got to chapter 2 and found the mother, Mrs. Santiago, was the exact same way as the child she birthed. How else could Winter be when her mother was a mahogany skinned beauty who was all about beauty and treating her man right in the bedroom so she could get her way. So she's raising little hookers, as she calls her daughter Winter. Come here, you little hooker. I know you're looking at Midnight. And Midnight is one of the soldiers in Santiago's army, drug army. And I'm thinking, I have too many other things to do with my time than to spend my time reading this. Scarface in black literature. Another New Jack City with females running things. I mean, hopefully she was going to be running something if she started out with the daddy who was the kingpin. I don't know. But I wasn't willing to find out back then. Boop, ditched it. Mind you, I don't normally start books and don't finish. No matter what. Sometimes I plow through them, speed read through them, just to see if there's going to be any redeeming quality about them that's going to allow me to continue reading. That one, I just let go and walked away. But I am so glad that several of my friends this year, 2021, broached the topic of that book and said, Claudia, have you ever read The Coldest Winter Ever? And I said, no, I couldn't finish it. And some of these women were my longtime beloved friends. And I thought, they love this book? Why? This book had been dropped so many years ago, and I know that many of them had not reread it, because when I said, why? What makes it so intriguing? They said, basically, it was a good book. I read it so many years ago, I don't remember the details, but I do remember it was about blah, blah, blah. But the blah, blah, blah wasn't enough to pull me in right then. And they continued to mention this book. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to read that book. Just like some of you might look at this video and say, she's talking about a ghetto girl. She looks like a ghetto woman, graced out in green, with braids, with jewels on them. I mean, why should I listen to her tell me about Sister Soldier and why she didn't like the book? Then you need to stick around, just like I had to stick around over so many years to find out why I should read this book and why I did read this book. Because you have to learn sometimes all over again. that you cannot judge a book by its cover, and you cannot judge a person by her appearance. That book is so fascinating that I made note to read several more books that Sister Soja has written. And I applaud her on the number of books that she's put out since 1999. I am totally mesmerized with her character, the heart of The Coldest Winter Ever, Midnight. So I will read the 3 books that she has, 3 or 4, about Midnight. She developed him like an art, like African art, blended with American art. And I want to know his story. I'm fascinated with him. As I kept reading The Coldest Winter Ever, I grew even more fascinated with Midnight. Bilal. O'Day Bilal. If I had continued reading the story and not put it down after 3 chapters, the first time I picked the book up, I would have learned what I know today. That book is simply mesmerizing. It is, true enough, Winter Santiaga's story. But Sister Soja tells the story in such a way that her narrative flow, first of all, is exquisite. I love the way she told the story. I love the way she tells the story in a quick moving fashion. You don't have a chance to get weighted down in sometimes the lushness and other times the absolute mundaneness of the everyday. It's like a movie screen. You're zipping and flowing up and down on that roller coaster with Winter because her life is not one that allows you to flow like you're flowing down a stream at Disney World. Something is ever happening. She doesn't want the stillness of silence, nor does her mother, Mrs. Santiago. They are simply bored with life in Long Island because by the end of the first chapter, Santiago is moving his family from their fancy ghetto fortress into Long Island because he says he doesn't want what might happen on the streets that they don't know about. He doesn't want violence to touch his ladies. So Ricky Santiago moves his family to a beautiful haven that they really can't appreciate. The little ones can. The 3 little girls in the family, Portia, Alexis, and Mercedes. So without telling you blow by blow what happens in the novel, like I am ever prone to do, I will go with the novel is about a female character, Winter, that we see from 13 years old when she's having sex with twins and her best girl Natalie from the ghetto, and they're having sex and they're enjoying themselves, and then she's talking about her world and how much she loves her handsome, sexy, debonair, money-carrying father, well-dressed. His cologne, the smell of his expensive cologne met you before he did. So you have this picture of what it's like to be Winter in her position in the ghetto. The father comes in, Santiago comes in, and he goes through 2 doors, 2 fortresses in the ghetto apartment in Brooklyn before they move out to Long Island. And he goes in the back and he is there playing chess against himself. I thought that was attribute, along with so many other things, to Sister Soldier's pre-thinking, organization, writing, noting, building of the story probably before she wrote it, when she said she took notes on what came to her about what she wanted to write about. It was amazing because he never played against other people, his chess game. He only played against himself. He said to know all of the positions on the board at every angle, but can you really when you're only playing against yourself? So it's not going to be long before you actually lose, because you're not broadening your awareness of the game of life, of the game of drugs. If you're only playing against yourself and only tunnel vision, walking in your idea of what a kingpin's life is supposed to be. Yes, you move your family trying to protect the women out to Long Island, but are you really protecting them? Because when you go down, and you have to know that as a drug lord, you are going down. It's just the nature of the game. You are going down, but when you go down, when the dominoes fall, will you have everything in place? And it could happen so fast that your dominoes might not fall the way you want them to fall. But when they fall, are your women really going to be protected? No. And Santiago had to learn that the hard way. Winter had to learn that when her father went down and she was left on her own. She had to learn that she didn't have all the skills that she really needed to make it on her own. She was always running after the next young kingpin, trying to latch on to his money, his ride, what he could do for her, because Winter Santiago was going to be his ideal female to protect and love, and hopefully be right there with him to have her own game too, and money-making prowess right there, maybe like Bonnie and Clyde with him, because that's what she really wanted for herself and Midnight. But that wasn't to happen because she didn't read. She didn't think. She wasn't left in silence to know what she could do, to be complete, to know whether or not she wanted to live the life her father had laid out for himself and the family. She didn't take the gifts of her own position and where she was in her heels, her knowledge of hair, makeup, nails, clothes, the way a woman should walk and move, to help other women to maybe make money as a woman who showed other women how to be more sensual, how to be sexy. She didn't do that. So what did she do? She latched on to men like Santiago, who would eventually, like Bullet, be one of the reasons she ended up in prison, to serve her time as a young, beautiful thing who was no longer beautiful, but her father had to tell her that she was still beautiful when she was allowed to leave prison and go see her mother and go see what was left of her mother at her funeral. Same as Santiago was allowed to leave prison and go see what was left of his wife. Drugs and their effects on people, the buyer, the seller, the community, the family. Sister Soldier artfully laid that out for us in that book, The Coldest Winter Ever. It's a must read. It shows the rise and fall of a drug kingpin, Ricky Santiago. His wife, I could see, is twisted in the first chapter because she twists her face when she's talking to her daughter about something. Something that was said makes her twist her face. So it's foreshadowing that she will have issues from the first chapter. She's a bad bitch, Mrs. Santiago, without a name. She's a bad bitch. The feds came in, took him down, used the young heads, another vicious gang, a vicious drug gang or drug lords who came in and killed children. Santiago's fall comes. And when it comes, the feds come in, they take his house, they take everything of value in the house, they take his children. Winter escapes by lying. She says she's Rosie and she's not with the family. His wife wants to buck a little bit about what's going on here. She's showing her aggressiveness. That, wait a minute, what's going on? She's the lioness momentarily. And they take her into custody. Now she's in lockdown for a while. Not as long, of course, as Santiago, but she's locked up. Her children are taken. And that twisted mouth and expression she gives in the very first chapters, that foreshadows what's going to happen because she's shot in the face. Right? She's a ride or die chick. So you will see what happens to her later. But I am so glad I read the story because Sister Soldier, I want to say, Sister Soldier's name is creative. Soldier. It sounds more or less like soldier, but it's not soldier. Could be to some people, but for me, I saw it as soul. Like we all have souls. What are you doing with your life? As she asked, as a character in her book, I got to give it to her on that one. That one was very good. I had issues with it at first, but then I thought that is creative. I will give that to her. So I changed quite a bit even while reading it. Even while speaking to beloved others about the book, I changed. You can too. We all can change for the better, hopefully. Soldier, soul, Jah, the name for God in some religions. Jah, soldier. Just plain creative. Soldier in the book is a character who tries to get African Americans caught up in the drug scene to step away from the game, work together, build together, create community, bring back love, loyalty, respect, honesty, family. Family sticks together, as Santiago tells his family. But the glue for them to stick together came undone. Because Ricky Santiago's family went poof like a puff of smoke. Sister Soldier, as a character in the book, really tried to help the African Americans hooked on drugs and in destitute situations. Some she even brought into the place she rented from Doc, a middle-aged female surgeon and doctor who owned the building that Sister Soldier lived in. But you can only do so much if you're wanting to help. She knew that. But she still did what she had to do. She still walked her path. And sometimes I'm sure she was disillusioned, but she had to still do what she had to do, just like Winter had to do what she had to do. Winter had no loyalties to anyone. And of course, when the tables were turned, no one had loyalty for Winter. And she was attacked and running every which way in the novel. She ends up in the House of Success, a home for teenage girls who were caught on the wrong side of the law. The Bureau of Child Welfare put Winter in this home. As Winter's parents were gone. The father was locked up. The mother was a crackhead who wasn't even recognizable in her coffin. brought Santiago to his knees when he was allowed to see what was left of her. Winter already knew. I don't know why she even pretended to be flabbergasted at the funeral. I mean, she knew her mother was a crackhead, knew her drug-dealing boyfriend was giving her crack. But Sister Souljah, I really loved her character in the novel because she did try. But Winter, she even, Rashida, a little girl that I loved also in the story, even though her period was very, very minuscule, her presence, even though her presence was short-lived in the novel, she was a connector. Rashida brought Winter right up close and personal with Sister Souljah, where Winter even stayed in Sister Souljah's house. And now that I think about it, I love the way the novel opens with Winter saying, "That's Sister Souljah, I hate her. She just talks and talks about nothing, gets on my nerves. She's the only one talking about a war. Everybody knows drug dealers don't force anybody to take drugs. I mean, this woman, we already see Winter as a juxtaposition character foil to Sister Souljah. And then we see it later developed when the man that Winter wants, Midnight, wants Sister Souljah and doesn't want Winter. And Winter, with her fine young ghetto body, she's like, hey, I want Midnight. I can get him with everything that I know. $1,000 suit here and there, jewelry, perfume, hair. I got you, Midnight, baby, I got you. But Midnight was like, you don't even read. You don't know anything. All you can do is pretend and then cry when everything falls down. When things fall apart, all you can do is cry. And he was right. But she was trying to find him, though, when her parents were gone and he moved to Baltimore. She was trying to get in his tracks, but I understand now why he couldn't allow her to get behind him, because he was like, me bringing you along? To me, it was like using jewelry, money, a loaded pistol, and anything else that if the police busted your apartment and found her in there with all of her little machinations and doings, goodbye Midnight. He would not have been the last man standing in Santiago's camp. And no. When I was speaking with one of my friends, I said, oh my God, one bad thing after another has already happened to Winter in this story. I can't imagine what else. One of my friends was like, oh, that's only the beginning. Wait until you continue reading, other things will happen. And truly enough, Sister Souljah has just tension, conflict, stress, drama. She has everything going on in Winter's life. And Winter is still static, unchanging, and doesn't know to stop, reevaluate, get silent, connect with something within her, see what she can do not to continue walking in the same steps that she was walking in. I'm so glad once again I continued reading, because just like Winter stayed static, Midnight was redeeming, dynamic, rewarding, handsome, sensual, a model of African-American male, or he wasn't African-American, he was African, a model of male beauty, intelligence, prowess, strength, honesty. Like I said, I loved his character. So that was great now that I've read it, to really look at the positioning of Winter alongside who she wanted, Midnight. A man she could never have. I don't know if she could never really have him, because Sister Souljah may just give Winter to him in another novel. I don't know. Maybe Winter finally changes. She's 5 years younger, so maybe she gets her act together and Midnight is available. I don't know. But all I know is I'm interested in reading Midnight, A Gangster Love Story, Midnight and the Meaning of Love, A Moment of Silence, Midnight 3. I'm interested in reading No Disrespect, Sister Soldier's story about where she's been in life. And I found that out in this book, in the extra supplementary sections. I'm interested in even reading A Deeper Love Inside, the Portia Santiago story. This book is a fictional document of what really happens in ghettos in America, as Sister Soldier said, and around the world. So in this book, you learn why, in a narrative flow, not as something that you're reading in a textbook, but you learn why in fiction ghettos exist. You learn why governments don't really want them to change. You learn how drug money has its place in the economy of different places, America and around the world. So kudos to you, Sister Soldier. I am exceedingly proud of what you have accomplished in the coldest winter ever. I love the supplementary information in this book because you have a part that says, there's a question, number 9 says, what were you trying to achieve with the novel, The Coldest Winter Ever? And you said to put drug use out of style. You brought it down front and center about what drug use can do. Yes, you did. You showed what drug use could do to what drug use did to Ricky Santiago. And you showed what it did to Mrs. Santiago, who was just a crackhead blowing in the wind, in the breeze at the end of the novel. So I agree when you say I would let all youth know that drugs make you not only unhealthy, but mentally unstable and ugly. When I got to the end of the novel, I still didn't feel as if Winter was a dynamic character who changed as a result of seeing what drugs could do and did to her and her family. And so I think you did it just so much, just so far. I think you accomplished it. But I think there's much more to accomplish, and maybe that's what you were going for in part 2. But Winter should have been well, not should have, you could do whatever you want to do. It seems to me that Winter might have had more opportunities to think about what drugs accomplished in her life. Because I don't think she really felt much for her mother when her mother was spiraling into a crackhead. Winter was simply like, let's move on, get this over with, sweep the trash up, let's go. My boyfriend is talking about her throwing her drugs, and I'm passing her drugs out of the apartment doors, slot hole. I think more could have been done in that sense, but you still did a great job with showing how drugs should be out of style. To put drug dealing out of style, and you showed the decline of Ricky Santiago, kudos to you for that, because you certainly did that. And I love the way you said, especially now when so many businesses have opened up to the youth through the success of hip hop. I concur with that as well. And you said you can go into photography, graphics, clothing, like I'm speaking to Sister Soldier, clothing design, styling, real estate, film directing, video gaming, video directing, shoe companies, vending, or writing. So there's so many other things you can do, she's saying, than aim to be a drug lord. And she says in C, her aim was to get youth to recognize their talents and convert them into business, because Winter Santiago was incredibly talented, as I noticed throughout the story, when she was able to do what she did and sell her skills. Like, she was able to get her friend Simone to boost clothes from the department stores, and then she was able to sell those clothes, put the looks together with the hair and the nails and all of the styling to sell to the young ladies at the House of Success. She did their hair even and their makeup, but she wasn't able to see how that could be a bridge to something else other than running behind young drug lords to claim herself as a person. And it says here, D, she was saying she wanted to, Sister Soldier said she wanted to get the youth to use their time wisely. I love that. I love that so much it made me think, well, Claudia, how are you using your time? I love that she says here, Natalie was a good example of someone who wasted a lot of time. So it made me think, what do I do that is wasting a lot of time? That was awesome. She says, E, she wanted to recapture the black male identity. She felt that too many people had too great an influence over our fathers, brothers, sons, and who they were becoming. Awesome, again. And I think she did a great job with that as well. When she was trying to get our sons out of naming themselves after certain people. And she says here, Noriega, Escobar, Gotti, Alpo, Don Corleone, Gambino, Bishop Don Juan, Pretty Tony, Bullet, and all of these other host of other destroyers. She says here, F, to redesign the black female identity. Loved it. She wanted to shake up the backward notions of womanhood pushed by the American money-making machine. Like women could only be cute and sexy or ugly and stupid. It's just amazing. She says here, in marketing Sister Soldier as a character, I hope to show that the possibility exists that you can be from the projects, drug-free, paid, political, popular, cultural, pretty, productive, married, motherly, powerful, feminine, intelligent, beautiful, and loved. Oh my gosh. That is worthy. H, to expose how the American economy is fueled by drug dealing and drug money. Oh my goodness. How drugs destroy and bring black communities down. How somewhere somebody is profiting from that. Not only that, Sister Soldier, I want to say, I can add to that the notion of drugs in the American medical arena, where you can be a drug addict, where you can become a drug addict, taking prescription drugs by your doctor. Instead of using holistic methods to free yourself of certain ailments, you are becoming a drug addict in another sense, fueling American economy. Whereas, unlike Canada, where medical services are free, here, medical industry is booming. It's a big business. And we don't want to make that free. And they don't want to make that free. This book is exceedingly thought-provoking. This book not only shows you the rise and decline of leaders in drugs, of drug lords, but it also gives you a pathway to do something productive when you see what drugs can do to your loved ones or strangers or your community. You can become a Sister Soldier-like character. You can help where possible, even if it's an encouraging word or a meal or a dollar. You can be proactive to do something about it instead of reactive. This book is worthy of your time. I am so glad I read this book. Not only for the story and what can happen, but I am glad I read this book also for the extra reading that came about as a result of this book, the extra reading that I can do. Because in this book, Midnight as a character and Sister Soldier as characters read. And they read about the black community and what's happening to African Americans here and around the world. I'm not sure if Portia reads, but we'll see when I read her story. In the Coldest Winter Ever, and I'll tell you about that name in just a minute, Sister Soldier has midnight reading. So the art of war is mentioned in that book. The wretched of the earth. They came before Columbus. Angela Davis, an autobiography. Asada, Institution of Racism in America. A People's History of the United States. And 100 Years of Lynching. The Soledad Brothers. Blood in My Eye. Before the Mayflower. The Choice. Native Son. American Hunger. If you haven't read those books, and you are an African American conscious about what's going on and what has been going on and what has been our history and what is our present and possible future, you might want to pick up at least one of those books and elucidate your mind. Make way for those type of conversations to flow that need to flow, as Sister Soldier tried to do as a character in the book and as she tries to do as herself in this life, standing up in this life. I am just so full of what can happen with the mind, the soul, your spirit after you've read this book. The Coldest Winter Ever is a title that explains how winter was birthed into this world by Mrs. Santiago. She was birthed, she came out of her mother's body, as she says in the opening chapter, during the coldest winter ever. So her mother named her Winter, and her father sent a limo to the hospital to get her. Of course, he wasn't there himself. He might have been out on a drug run. But sent a limo to bring the family home, the wife and the new baby girl. The first new baby girl. And winter was the coldest winter ever at the end of the novel, when she ended up in prison for a good number of years. Winter is finding it extremely cold from prison when she has to learn how to be okay with being naked so that the prison workers can prod her body to make sure she doesn't have anything stashed away in any orifice. She has to walk on the certain part of the hall in prison. She has to learn how to be a great prisoner, a good prisoner, while she learns also that her girls and her other family members are in prison, so she doesn't really miss anybody because they're all in prison. It's a cold winter for beautiful little Miss Winter. And it's a cold winter for me as I see Winter at the end of the novel, standing at her mother's gravesite and her father there. And then Midnight walks up. He has women with him. For a moment, Winter is like, oh, I don't want Midnight to see me like this. But he brings Lexi and Mercedes to see their father, Santiago. They greet him because they're older girls by now, reared without him, without their crackhead mother. And they say formally hello to him. Winter notices that they don't say hello like he's their father. They're so disconnected from him. Actually, Midnight is now their father. He adopted them. And Midnight has other women with him. But that Winter, hopefully she's dynamic and changes in another novel. But Winter, you made your bed hard, as my father would say. Bless his heart, he's gone. So now you've got to rest in it. You've got to rest your head in it until you change. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to my thoughts about the coldest winter ever. I appreciate you. This is Claudia in another series of Wine, Women, and Words. Kudos to you, Sister Soldier. Carry on with your creative pen and all of your other undertakings. I hear you're in Atlanta. Congratulations to you. Blessings to you, your husband, and children. And wherever you stand up in the world and write, be ye blessed. Bye-bye. I'll see you in another video. 1, 2, 3, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. 1, 2, 3, examinando. 1, 2, 3, examinando. 1, 2, 3, examinando. 1, 2, 3, examinando. Yeah! 1, 2, 3, testing.